Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Well, it's Monday, and we have a great show for you. First, he panicked. Next, Donna Adelson, give you a trial update. What could possibly come from your own child testifying for the prosecution? The parents arrested in the alleged murder of that missing infant, Emmanuel Haro. Well, the father is apparently assisting in the search for the remains. The Menendez brothers are not so model after all. Parole denied. The Rhode Island legal luminary takes an unscheduled sabbatical after her viral tussle. Change for the better. A builder in Maine dumps $20,000 fine in a collection of coins. We have this day in legal history, our legal quote of the day, and our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment below, hit that little bell for notifications, and yes, you can check us out anytime on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Now, before we get started, let me remind you to go to crimetalksearch.com. When you sign up for this background subscription service, you can do as many background searches as you desire on anyone here in the United States. The report is literally prepared while you wait. It is emailed to you, and you can get updates if something comes about. And you're going to find out people's telephone numbers, their email addresses. You're going to find out if they have a social media presence. You're going to find out if they have a criminal history. Are they married? Are they divorced? Do they have liens, judgments? And yes, most importantly, are they on one of those lists that they have to register for? All the things that you want to find out if somebody's coming into your life. So go to crimetalksearch.com and sign up today. All right. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Here, it was just kind of cold and rainy all weekend. Feels like fall already. I'm not ready for summer to end. Let's just leave it at that. Anyway, let's go ahead and open the record for Monday, August 25th, 2025. And yes, he panicked. So what do we know? The forensic experts have disclosed more and more details from Brian Kohberger's phone records, illustrating his escalating anxiety after police publicly identified a white Hyundai Elantra as the vehicle of interest back in the 2022 University of Idaho student murders. So the data suggests Kohberger reacted with a series of urgent online searches and actions, underscoring the vehicle's role as a critical vulnerability in his evasion efforts. So Kohberger, obviously then the graduate student at Washington State, located approximately 10 miles from the crime scene in Moscow, Idaho, owned obviously the matching white Hyundai Elantra. And according to digital forensic specialists Jared and Heather Barnhart of Celebrite, who reviewed the device's data, Kohberger had downloaded a PDF listing registered Hyundai Elantras at the university, indicating his awareness of, obviously, forthcoming potential scrutiny. The vehicle represented a significant source of stress for him, given its registration for parking on campus. Jared Barnhart stated in an interview, he noted that the list revealed numerous similar vehicles, yet Kohberger's behavior deviated markedly from typical responses. Phone records from the late hours of December 29, 2022 showed that Kohberger engaged in the following activities: searching for terms such as wiretap and psychopaths paranoid, reading a news report on law enforcement's ongoing hunt for the suspect vehicle, accessing the Moscow Police Department's website to review the most recent press releases on the investigation, and immediately querying an auto detailing service within 10 minutes, browsing online for a replacement vehicle. Obviously, the sequence occurring within a 15-minute span reflects an attempt to mitigate evidence tied to his car. Such actions are somewhat inconsistent with innocent behavior, and they indicate someone under intense pressure, believing police were closing in, and which they were. Now, Kohberger's arrest followed shortly thereafter at approximately 1:30 a.m. on December 30th, when police raided his parents' home in Pennsylvania. Obviously, if you've been following this channel for a while, you know that the murders took place on November 13th, 2022, claiming the lives of the four University of Idaho students: Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, Zaina Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. Obviously, they were all stabbed during the early morning hours intrusion into their residence, with most believed to have been asleep initially, and surveillance footage captured the white Hyundai Elantra, consistent with Kohberger's car, obviously near the scene multiple times. Ultimately, investigators linked Kohberger to the crime through DNA recovered from a K-bar knife sheath. Yes, just like this one. That's right. Right here in the little button. Right here. Right there. That's right. And, well, the rest is basically history. They employed some advanced investigative genetic genealogy techniques with the FBI. And like I said, the rest is history as it relates to identification. However, detectives have emphasized that vehicle-related leads alone would have sufficed to identify him, given prior traffic stops involving Kohberger near the campuses and the car's visibility on campus cameras. And then on July 2nd of this year, Kohberger, now 30, entered a guilty plea to all 4 murder counts there in Ada County. And part of the agreement with the prosecutors was that the death penalty be removed from considerations. So therefore, he was sentenced to those 4 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Now, no official motive has ever been truly established, but obviously speculation persists regarding possible fixations on one of the female victims. Now, the families of Gonzalez and Kernodle have publicly criticized that plea deal, arguing it denies full justice for what they describe as one of the most appalling crimes on a college campus. Anyway, it took 3 years to resolve that case, and here we are. And everything that keeps coming out, both in the Washington Police Department, Pullman Police Department, everything that we've seen as it relates to the Idaho State Police, everybody that came in contact with this guy just thought he was weird and creepy. So there was another article that we found when we were doing our case prep, and this was from the New York Post, and it says it's authored by a gentleman by the name of Brad Pierce. And it says, my small town beer buddy vented about his creepy teaching assistant all semester. It turned out it was Brian Kohberger. So it's just not worth just talking about it. I think to truly do this article justice, we just got to read it verbatim because I think it just shows you how weird this guy was and is. And everybody who met him was like creeped out by him. And I think that's interesting because there's so many people that support him that I wonder if they met him, if they'd still have the same, I don't know, fascination, intrigue by him. So John Schneider is a kindly older man who lives in a small town. He's what you'd consider a normal person, a married homeowner who teaches at the local university. He'd been a public defender for almost 30 years when he took the opportunity to teach students about the legal system instead of defending them in it, feeling he was nearing burnout in a demanding profession. I've come to know John pretty well over the years, not just because we live in the same town. My wife, Alexis, is his favorite bartender, and he likes going out for dinner with his wife or having a beer after work as much as the next guy. But there was a marked theme on John's happy hour conversation in fall of 2022. His teaching assistant at the Washington State University Criminal Justice and Criminology Department was an a-hole who was driving him crazy. Normal after work grumblings, one might think, even in a high quantity. The life is your peaceful region that was interrupted in November of 2022 when 4 University of Idaho students were brutally murdered 20 minutes away. After the new year, John came into the bar carrying a newspaper and looking bad enough that my wife said, "What's wrong? You look like shit." John held up a paper and confirmed that what was suspected after the arrest. His teaching assistant was Brian Kohberger. And John Schneider has avoided the media since Kohberger's arrest, but due to our friendship, he agreed to meet at the Palouse Caboose Bar and Grill, where my wife is a bartender, for some pitchers of beer and his first and probably only in-depth interview about supervising Brian Kohberger. Now, John graduated from the University of Idaho School of Law in 1988 and began working as a public defender. His specialization throughout his legal career, saying criminals are more honest and easier to work with than most people going through a divorce. I would agree. He was also attracted to the field by his sense of justice and a desire to see people who may have disadvantages within society treated fairly by the legal system. Noble. And something of a troublemaker himself, his skill at pool paid his bar tabs all through law school. He could imagine being caught making some of the same mistakes as his clients. He occasionally dealt with homicides and other serious crimes, but in a college town, it's mostly young people screwing up. John doesn't feel this career was giving him any greater ability to sense evil than the average person. As a professor, John had a high volume of students and couldn't get to know many of them very well. Teaching assistants are different, and in normal circumstances, one works with them extensively. It used to be that professors chose preferred potential TAs from a list, but for a reason he's never discovered, the school abandoned this system and randomized the process, which is how he was assigned to Kohberger. When the graduate student came to introduce himself in early summer 2022, John didn't think much of him. He was a little odd, but a lot of people in academia are odd. Despite the TA's assignment system being designed to prevent this exact problem, Kohberger had a scheduling conflict and thus limited attendance in class, though he also often didn't show up when he was available. The infrequency of his class appearances didn't stop one female student from emailing a friend near the semester start saying, "My class TA looks like a murderer." John says he tries to look at TA's individual attributes and put them to work where they will be the most useful while training them on their weaker points. In this instance, however, Brian quickly dissuaded me of the idea that I would get a sufficient amount of work out of him, and I quickly figured out he was just, well, a douche. And within a few weeks, I realized this was going to be an exceptionally long semester. Despite Kohberger missing class, the professor saw him plenty. He rapidly developed a habit of coming in at the end of the day when I clearly wanted to go home, he says. He would start talking about inane, stupid, and immature things. I quickly realized that this was a technique where he felt like he was in control as long as he was wasting my time. Kohberger once tried to tell him how he was going to get out of a parking ticket, even managing to get him to examine the scene. It turned out the TA parked next to a yellow curb in a lot where he didn't have a permit anyway. Admonitions that in his experience as a defense attorney, people who believe they know the law better than the courts are always wrong fell on deaf ears. John says that over time, Kohberger would follow me down the hall yapping, and I started calling it his terrier routine. When John's wife was waiting in the car once, she saw Kohberger following him and recoiled nearly to the other side, a reaction he'd never seen from her in so many years of marriage. Snyder had grown to hate Kohberger over the course of the semester, but never thought he was dangerous. He actually considered him a wimp. He learned of Kohberger's arrest along with everyone else. He was in the office December 30th in a nearly empty building when the custodian told him the police had the basement sealed off. They ended up walking to a picture board of department members, and the custodian started pointing at photos speculating whose office the police might be searching. When the custodian got to Kohberger, it hit him. His teaching assistant was the murderer. Then his phone rang. His brother-in-law told him Kohberger had been arrested. That call was interrupted by his son calling, which was interrupted by the Moscow, Idaho police calling to set up an immediate interview. He drove to Moscow instead of waiting around for them to show up. From the police, he learned Kohberger had a list of women's names of unknown purpose, though surely not anything good, and one of them was a woman he knew from the department, but overall he wasn't able to greatly help them besides describing Kohberger's character. Having worked with a mass murder was a system shock for John, even if he always disliked the guy. The University Standards Trauma Assistant Program proved unhelpful. The support hotline he called listed every imaginable identity group besides his own, old white men, and then said it could set an appointment in 2 weeks. But he says that the stream of graduate students and undergrads coming into his office to offer support was one of the coolest things he'd ever experienced. The department chair also transferred his own excellent teaching assistant to John for the next semester to ease his workload, and so there would be no more surprises. John says the reality of the crime isn't what bothers him. It is instead someone studying criminology to become a better criminal instead of to pursue justice. It was the assault on why I do what I do. Promote justice and fairness, to find honor where there isn't any, to teach people to be decent human beings and to realize that life goes on, and to let people who had not experienced respect from the system know that the power to move past their troubles is inside them. I like that. Most of the people he worked with throughout his career were in bad circumstances and needed help out of the abyss, while Kohberger chose to dive into it. Though this may be over for the public, for those affected, it will never go away, and a feeling of safety is slow to return when you learn you've been in close contact with a monster. This coming year is likely to be Snyder's last year spent teaching, not just because of Kohberger. He has been working to make a more just society since 1998 and is tired. Let's hope some of the students he taught over the last 10 years can pick up the torch and none of them turn out to be the next Bryan Kohberger. As for his former TA, it is John's belief that being both extremely irritating and physically weak, he won't survive to the end of his natural life in prison. So I just thought that was an interesting article. I thought it was just worthy to read it and make sure that Brad Pierce got the credit that he deserved, as well as John Snyder. Now, I think John Snyder says it well. I don't think Bryan Kohberger will survive it either. But what I think is interesting is that this guy, public defender, usually can try to find the good in just about everybody, right? Didn't like the guy, referred to him as an a-hole, a douche. Nobody likes this guy. He's just that one guy that everybody hates, can't get along with everybody. And everybody looking back was like, oh yeah, it all makes sense now. It all makes sense now. It's just going to keep coming, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, so many signs. Obviously, we don't go arrest people before they commit crimes, but everybody had that feeling that this is the one guy that they needed to look out for. Next on the docket, Wendy Adelson testifies in her mother's murder trial over the ex-husband's death. That's right. In a highly charged courtroom session, Wendy Adelson appeared as a witness in the trial of her mother, Donna Adelson, who faces charges related to the 2014 killing of the Florida State University law professor Dan Markel, Wendy's former spouse. Now, Donna Adelson displayed clear signs of distress as her daughter entered the courtroom and assumed her position on the witness stand. The judge issued a warning to the defendant to control any potential emotional reactions while considering the inherent challenges of a parent witnessing their child's testimony in such a proceedings. Under questioning by Chief Assistant State Attorney Georgia Kappelman, Wendy Adelson promptly confirmed the presence of her mother in the courtroom. Donna Adelson is accused of murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation in connection with the contract killing of Markel. Now, the prosecution alleges that the crime stemmed from an acrimonious custody dispute during which Wendy sought to move their two children to South Florida, closer to her family. Prosecutors highlighted communications indicating Donna Adelson's strong opposition to Wendy remaining in Tallahassee. Wendy affirmed that her mother viewed the situation as one of confinement, likening it to being held hostage or imprisoned, and believed relocation offered the optimal path forward for her daughter. Now, the testimony came after an investigator from the state attorney's office presented numerous email exchanges between Wendy and Donna in the period surrounding the divorce and relocation efforts. Wendy acknowledged frequently discussing her marital difficulties with her parents and documenting details of the legal battles in these emails. When probed about her mother's personality, Wendy described Donna as highly protective and prone to strong emotions, though she disputed characterizations of her domineeringness. However, she conceded possibly having once referred to her mother's actions as involving emotional subterfuge. Now, Kappelman referenced a police interview transcript from the day of Markel's shooting in which Wendy reportedly stated that her parents harbored the greatest animosity towards her ex-husband. Wendy explained that the remark was a product of shock leading to unchecked verbal expressions. Further inquiries delved into the levels of resentment towards Markel. Wendy admitted that both she and her mother felt significant anger toward him prior to his death, with Wendy recalling moments of intense frustration. Prosecutors cited a 2013 email from Wendy expressing hatred for Markel, tempted by regret over such feelings towards her children's father. The session also addressed a judicial ruling denying Wendy's relocation request and Donna's subsequent response. One email from Donna reportedly declared that the judge referred to derogatorily had not yet prevailed against the family. Kappelman outlined alleged schemes to pressure Markel into consenting to the move, including proposals to convert the children to Christianity, attire them in offensive costumes, and an offer of a substantial financial incentives. Wendy confirmed that the proposed bribe amounted to approximately $1 million to be funded by her parents and brother in exchange for Markle's agreement to relocate. She stated she had dismissed these suggestions as completely irrational. Additional emails from Donna emphasized themes of negotiation and self-advocacy, asserting that all individuals have a negotiable threshold. Near the session's midpoint, prosecutors displayed an image of Wendy's brother, Charlie Adelson, and his former partner, Kathleen Magbuana, both previously convicted in the same plot, accompanied by a message advising against property purchases in Tallahassee, implying an imminent departure. Wendy Adelson's examination is scheduled to resume in the afternoon, which it did, and she's been granted immunity for her statements pursuant to a subpoena, though she is contesting a separate subpoena from the defense. So we're bringing that trial to you live. Go check it out. I mean, we got mothers killing their son-in-laws, conspiring with their sons and their partners. You just can't make this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. Next on the docket, parents arrested in the alleged murder of the missing infant, Emmanuel Haro. Guess what? The father's out there assisting in the search of the remains. So in Southern California, police have arrested the parents of 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro on murder charges following the infant's disappearance on August 14th. Now, Jake Haro and Rebecca Haro were taken into custody on August 22nd at their home in Cabazon after investigators determined that Rebecca's initial report of a kidnapping was fabricated. And the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department now believes that the child is deceased, with efforts focused on locating his remains. Now, the case began when Rebecca Haro reported that an unknown assailant attacked her outside of a sporting goods store, and that while she was changing her son's diaper, claiming she lost consciousness and awoke to find the child missing. Both parents initially appeared to the public for assistance in finding their young son. However, within days, sheriff officials identified discrepancies in her account and concluded no abduction had taken place. The circumstances surrounding the investigation are tragic and will continue to search for Emmanuel, stated the sheriff, Shannon Dykes, following the arrest. Now, prior to their detention, scrutiny intensified as the parents ceased cooperating with the detectives. And then on August 20th, the sheriff's department publicly encouraged them to resume involvement, emphasizing their participation would be welcomed. A nonprofit organization, the Uvalde Foundation for Kids, echoed this call on social media, urging the couple to join the search and assuring them of community support if they had nothing to conceal. Well, Jake Haro, who retained defense attorney Vincent Hughes, maintained through his lawyer that he was fully cooperating. Now, Hughes, who previously represented Haro in 2018, a child cruelty case for which he served a prison time and remains on probation, did not provide any further comment. Investigative actions escalated quickly. Cadaver detection dogs were deployed at the family's residence, and Jake Haro's vehicle was impounded for forensic examination. Now, there was footage captured of the arrest, showing the couple being removed from their home in a disheveled state with no visible emotional response. Then, on October 24th, 2 days after his arrest, Jake Haro was observed in an orange prison jumpsuit, aiding law enforcement in search along a highway in the Moreno Valley. Accompanied by investigators and cadaver dogs, he participated in securing an open field, though no remains were discovered during this particular search. The sheriff's department confirmed that the search for Emmanuel's body remains active, and Emmanuel Haro is described as approximately 24 inches tall, weighing 21 pounds, with brown hair, brown eyes, and a cross-eyed appearance. He was last seen wearing a black Nike onesie, and police continue to prioritize locating the infant, underscoring the case's focus on resolution. Obviously, a lot of stuff because we're talking about child safety and the reliability of the initial reports. I mean, it basically turned out that the family went in asking about where are the cameras in the parking lot because they didn't want to be detected, right? And these cases just, they break my heart. I've done lots of child abuse cases over the years resulting in death, and they are some of the hardest to deal with. In this case, where somebody's out trying, the dad is out trying to help with the search, reminds me of a case that I had. All right. I had a client. I represented the female. The public defenders had the father. And basically, the mother knew that abuse was taking place, went to work one day, and came home and found that the child was deceased. And instead of calling the police, they tried to protect themselves, particularly the boyfriend who had ultimately harmed the child. So what did they come up with? A plot, right? That the child was missing. They also came up with a plan. So they stuffed the child into a duffel bag, take a bus across town, stop at McDonald's with their child stuffed in a duffel bag, mind you, eat like nothing's going on, leave the McDonald's and go bury the child in a wooded area. My client obviously didn't participate in that, but the dad also had criminal history, and they were probably going to go with the death penalty. And guess what? To take the death penalty off the table, they said, lead us to where the child is, and so we can give a child a proper burial and take care of that. And they did that, and ultimately he pled guilty. And ultimately my client did too, to a much lesser charge given some abuse that took place in her case. But I'm telling you, these are the worst cases of all. I mean, there's so many people, whether the kid is, has disabilities of any kind, there's so many people that want to have kids. And if you don't want to have your kid, you don't kill it. You don't dump it in the woods somewhere. You take it to somebody that actually wants it. And it's just crazy that people do this. And what's crazier is that people actually think that they're going to get away with it. Next on the docket, Lyle Menendez was denied parole Friday by the same board that earlier that day rejected his brother Eric's appeal for freedom after serving decades in prison for killing their parents back in 1989 at their Beverly Hills mansion. The reason was, the same: misbehavior behind bars. So the panel of 2 commissioners denied Lyle Menendez parole for 3 years after a day-long hearing. Commissioners noted that the older brother still displayed antisocial personality traits like deception, minimization, and rule breaking that lie beneath that positive surface. We do understand that you had very little hope of being released for years, the commissioner said, but as citizens are expected to follow the rules, whether or not there is some incentive to do so. She also said the panel found his remorse genuine and that he has been a model inmate in many ways who has demonstrated the potential for change. Don't ever give up hope. Anyway, the brothers were sentenced to life in prison back in 1996 for fatally shooting their father, Jose Menendez, and the mother, Kitty Menendez, in their Beverly Hills mansion almost exactly 36 years ago on August 20th, 1989. I don't know. What would you do if you were on the parole board? Would you let them out? I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. I just think, I don't know. Let me know what you would do. I don't know. I don't think I'd let them out. Next on the docket, you've probably seen that video of the Rhode Island legal luminary who, let everybody know that she was an AG. Well, guess what? She's taking an unscheduled sabbatical. So Devin Hogan Flanagan, a special assistant attorney general in Rhode Island, finds herself sidelined without pay following a memorable event that now is internet famous. The saga unfolded last week when Flanagan and a companion were nabbed outside of a Newport, Rhode Island eatery for suspected trespassing, all immortalized in crisp police body cam glory. As the officers did their duty, Flanagan reportedly invoked her lofty title like magic incantation, declaring herself AG nearly a dozen times. Once secured in the squad car, she issued a prophetic warning to the arresting officer. Pal, this is a good decision. You'll rue. For good measure, she suggested the cops switch off their cameras, perhaps hoping to edit the scene in post-production. Well, Rhode Island's top legal eagle, Attorney General Peter Donna, deemed the spectacle utterly indefensible in a radio chat, though he noted Flanagan has since expressed genuine contrition after a private screening of her starring role. She's owning up to it with real regret, he remarked, hinting that her final verdict is still pending deliberation. Not one to let a good scandal simmer unattended, the Rhode Island Republican Party fired off a missive demanding Flanagan's swift dismissal, lambasting her actions as the epitome of entitled excess. Quote, "This brazen display is precisely the sort of hubris that's wearing thin on folks here," unquote, proclaiming party chair Joe Powers. "It is not mere missteps. It's a flagrant rule-bending, legal fibbing, and the smug smirk of those with fancy themselves above the fray." Power didn't skimp on kudos for the Newport officers, lauding their composure as a masterclass in professionalism amid the chaos. They embodied grace under pressure, while she channeled the archetype of the overprivileged diva. As the dust settles, Flanagan's unpaid hiatus kicks off today, with the duration as unpredictable as a jury's mood. Stay tuned. Justice, it seems, has a sense of humor. I love those videos where politicians, district attorneys, AGs, all let everybody know that they're prosecutors, and they expect some sort of professional courtesy, and you're going to get in trouble, and how dare you do this? Well, it happens. I recently learned of a situation here where a district attorney tried to help out his girlfriend and went to court and basically said, extend a little professional courtesy for this little traffic matter. Guess what? That DA got fired recently. You can't go around doing that. What do I keep saying, ladies and gentlemen? There's two types of people in the world: those that are humble and those that are about to be. Just be professional, be polite, and just be nice. And you don't have to do stupid things when you're drunk. Next on the docket, in the quaint town of Palermo, Maine, a local contractor has turned a routine fine into a spectacle of metallic mischief, proving that revenge can indeed be served cold and clinking. Kirk Sherman, a determined developer, acquired a scenic slice of Sheepscott lakefront in April of 2024. Eager to enhance his new asset, he and associate Dusty Haskell consulted the town's code enforcer on permitted projects. They were greenlit for a modest 6-foot winding trail over 100 feet with limited fill in the subsequent 200 feet, amounting to a mere tenth of an acre. Anyway, yet, as town selectman Robert Couric Riley observes, Sherman's vision veered off path. What materialized was a bulldozed boulevard 12 to 20 feet wide, encroaching perilously near the water's edge. This intrusion, Couric notes, tamped down vital wetlands that filter lake water and sustain local fauna, potentially jeopardizing the entire ecosystem. Dedicated balance. Well, the Maine Department of Environmental Protection couldn't just look on. No, they must weigh in, acknowledging the wetland disturbance, but offering a lifeline. Swift remediation could avert state penalties. Sherman insisted he acted appropriately, enlisting experts and complying fully, earning the Department of Environmental Protection's nod without further sanction. "We jumped through every hoop they presented," he quips. Nevertheless, Palermo's select board, undeterred, opted to enforce municipal muscle. And as Couric explains, while direct fines for shoreland infractions are off limits, a consent agreement can extract payment with court as the alternative. Sherman, sensing selective scrutiny, signed on but plotted a parting shot. Enter the payback. Last week, Sherman delivered the $20,000 due in not crisp bills or a tidy check, but in a staggering 12,000 plus pounds of loose change deposited at the town office like an avalanche of pocket lint. "I'm settling the score," Sherman declared with a grin, "but I wanted them to grasp our frustration. Consider this our cheeky receipt. Handle with care." Town officials, far from amused, declared the stunt as beneath professional decorum. Such antics undermined respectful dealings, Couric laments, hinting at a potential surcharge for the clerk's coin counting ordeal. After all, in Palermo, it seems loose change can tighten tensions. You gotta love it, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know. You gotta love it. I just love stories like that. Next on the docket, this day in legal history for August 25th. Well, 1916, the establishment of the National Park Service by President Woodrow Wilson. That's right. He signed the Organic Act creating the National Park Service within the Department of Interior, and the legislation mandated the preservation of natural and historic sites, setting a foundational legal framework for federal government, environmental conservation, and public land management. Let's jump to 1921, signing of the U.S.-German Peace Treaty. That's right. The United States formally signed a separate peace treaty with Germany in Berlin, officially ending American involvement in World War I after rejecting the Treaty of Versailles. This treaty resolved wartime legal obligations, including reparations and diplomatic relations, independent of the League of Nations, formerly known as the United Nations. Next, on this date in 1948, Albert Hiss denies espionage charges before the House Un-American Activities Committee in a televised hearing. Anyway, this event initiated Hiss's perjury trial, a landmark case in U.S. legal history that highlighted Cold War-era investigations into communism and influenced anti-subversion laws. On this date in 1950, President Truman's executive order on railroads, that's right, Truman issued the executive order 10155, placing U.S. railroads under Army control to avert a nationwide strike amid the Korean War. This action invoked emergency powers under federal law, demonstrating executive authority over labor disputes and national security in times of crisis. See, ladies and gentlemen, it's not new. People have been doing this all the time. It just claim national security. They can do just about anything. Go back to the Patriot Act. National security gives the government a lot of power. Next, legal quote of the day. Now, as you may have heard, the president today signed an executive order that if anyone burned the United States flag, that they should go to prison for, I believe, up to 1 year. I obviously love the flag. Look, we got one right over here. I served in the military. I would not want anybody to burn the American flag, but I also believe that it is the epitome of free speech. As the court in the case of Texas v. Johnson, United States Supreme Court case back in 1989, where the court held that burning the American flag as a form of political protest constitutes protected symbolic speech under the First Amendment. A central quotation from Justice William Brennan's majority opinion states, quote, "If there is a bedrock principle underlying the First Amendment, it is that the government may not prohibit the expression of an idea simply because society finds the idea itself offensive or disagreeable." Obviously, this principle underscores the court's reasoning that flag desecration laws cannot criminalize expressive conduct merely due to its unpopularity, thereby affirming broad protections of free expression under the First Amendment. I wouldn't do it. Probably punch somebody in the nose that did it. But it is the epitome of free speech. I once saw Justice Scalia talk about that. He said that, it was a plurality decision, 5-4. So they could take up the issue again, and it could possibly change with the new makeup of the Supreme Court. But for now, it is protected speech. And I heard Justice Scalia talk about it. And he said he was the deciding vote on the 5-4. He hated it. He despised people burning the flag. But he agreed that that was the epitome of free speech in America, which is why he found that it was protected. Next, our dumb criminal of the day. In a fit of boozy ire over a neighbor's car encroaching on her turf, 48-year-old Marcia Morgan decided to drape the vehicular intruder in streams of toilet paper. Seems reasonable. Adding a dash of surreal flair to the 4 p.m. escapade, Miss Morgan executed her prank while clad in a hot dog costume. No relish required. Anyway, the Florida resident found herself in the mustard on Monday, facing charges of disorderly conduct and resisting arrest after officers observed her inebriated state and reluctance to assist their inquiries. By Tuesday, she entered a no contest plea to the misdemeanors. A fine of $550, redeemable through community service at $13 an hour. Regrettably, the official documents remain silent on the enigma of Morgan's Frankfurter attire during the lavatory theme lark outside of her St. Petersburg rental. You can't make this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. You can't make it up. All right, thanks for watching. Like I said, I hope you had a wonderful weekend. We're going to have a great week. We'll see you next time. And remember, the Constitution matters.